Now we're going to actually start factoring. We have done this before, and it's all based off your multiplication tables, right? So back to listing pairs of numbers that multiply to a certain number. So what are all pairs of numbers that multiply to 12? 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. That should not be hard for you. What multiplies to 30? Right, 1 times 30. I'll write 6 times 5 because everybody probably already said that, but what else multiplies to 30? 2 times 15. There's one more. Right, 3 times 10. All multiply to 30. How about factors that multiply to 20? 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. And lastly, numbers that multiply to 28. 1 times 28, 2 times 14, 4 times 7. So there's always one that's like the obvious one, like 4 times 7 or 4 times 5, but we don't want to forget about the other ones. Because then we're going to have to go through the pairs and they'll say, okay, of all the possible pairs that multiply to 12, which ones added to 8? So looking at these three pairs of numbers, which ones add to 8 and multiply to 12? 2 and 6, right? 2 times 6 is 12, 2 plus 6 is 8. What pair of numbers multiplies to 30 and adds to 11? Multiplies to 30 and adds to 11, right? 5 and 6. 5 times 6 is 30, 5 plus 6 is 11. You don't have to write that down, right? I'm just showing you how it's true. What multiplies to 20 and adds to 12? Looking again at these pairs of numbers, multiplies to 20 and adds to 12. Right, 2 and 10. And what multiplies to 28 and adds to 11? Right, 4 and 7. That's the skill that we're going to need to do our factoring problem. So we're just kind of practicing that skill. One time it's to say, well, what pair of numbers multiplies to a certain number and adds. Now we're going to do what pair of numbers multiplies to 12 and subtracts to 11. So looking again at those same pairs of numbers, it has to multiply to 12 and subtract to 11. Right, 1 and 12, because 12 times 1 is 12, and 12 minus 1 is 11. So it multiplies to 12, subtracts to 11. What multiplies to 30 and subtracts to 13? Right, 15 and 2. You don't have to write this down every time, I'm just showing you why it's true. 15 times 2 is 30, 15 minus 2 is 13. What multiplies to 20 and subtracts to 1? Right, 5 and 4. What multiplies to 28 and subtracts to 27? Right, 28 and 1. So that's really testing your multiplication skills and your addition and subtraction skills. And all those skills come together to factor. So what factoring is the opposite of FOILing. So if I show you this one, okay, and you might remember this just when I start doing the parentheses, x squared plus 8x plus 12. A lot of people will say, I don't know how to start these problems. To start, you look at the first term, which is x squared, and you say, what times what gives me x squared? X times x gives me x squared. Then you look at the last term, which is 12, and you write down here on the side the factors of 12. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. I need to know which pair of numbers that multiplies to 12 also adds to 8. It has to add to the middle term. So I think you'll agree that 2 and 6 multiply to 8 and multiply to 12 and add to 8. And this is my answer. If I want to check that answer, I would check it by FOILing x squared plus 6x plus 2x plus 12. X squared plus 8x plus 12. It's getting me back to where I started. But this is the answer to the problem. This is factoring. Factoring is breaking it down. Again, we have x squared So you would make your two parentheses, say what times what gives me x squared, x and x. Again, we would write the factors of 12. But now we need numbers that multiply to 12 but add to negative 7. I see that 3 and 4 add to 7. How can they add to negative 7 and multiply to positive 12? Right, if they're both minus. So x minus 3, x minus 4. By the way, it wouldn't matter if you did x minus 4, x minus 3. That's going to be the same thing, same inner and outers. And so if I check it, I see that I get x squared minus 7x plus 12. Next one, x squared. What times what multiplies to x squared? X and x, factors of 12. Okay, same thing. I'm writing them all down. Now I need numbers that add to a negative 13. So it's going to be 1 and 12, but they're both going to be negative. X minus 1, x minus 12. Now, I'm not going to make you do the check, okay? I'm writing it down to show you why it works. A lot of times we get so good at it, actually, that we could just do the check in our head. So then I asked a question, what can you conclude about the signs in numbers 1 through 3? They are all the same sign, right? They're the same sign. We'll formalize that a little bit later, but I just want to notice that they're the same because they always were multiplying to a positive. In each time we had positive 12. So you either multiply to a positive, positive times positive, or negative times negative. So either way, we all had the same sign. Again, we're going to have 12s here, so I'm just going to go ahead and write the factors of 12. But now, x squared, that's still the same, x and x. Now it's a negative 12. So what that means is one of the terms has to be negative. Now you could go so far as to do something like this and say either it's negative here or negative here. Really have 6 possibilities. And you want to find the possibility that adds to a negative 11. In other words, it has to multiply to a negative 12 and add to a negative 11. Right, it's going to be positive 1 and negative 12. Try it again. Has to multiply to a negative 12. And by the way, you'll get good enough at these, and it really just depends where your mental math skills are at, but we hope that you get good enough at these that you don't have to write all these down. You can just kind of think of them in your head, right? X and x. So now I need two numbers that multiply to negative 12 but add to a positive 4. So which of those 6 options adds to a positive 4? Right, negative 2, positive 6. And it doesn't matter if you said positive 6, negative 2. Either way, when I check it, I'm going to get x squared plus 6x minus 2x minus 12, or x squared plus 4x minus 12. That's just the check. That's not the answer. The last one here, I'm not going to write all the numbers down again because I have them written, so I'm just going to look at that same list and look for numbers that multiply to negative 12 but add to negative 1. Right. Positive 3, negative 4. Those numbers multiply to a negative 12 and add to a negative 1. And if I check it, it's going to work out. So what can I look at those signs and conclude? Those all had different signs. It always had one positive and one negative because it had to multiply to a negative. So now just a little kind of mixed up practice with some bigger numbers like 32, 1 times 32, 2 times 16, 4 times 8, x and x. It has to multiply to a positive 32 and then add to a negative 12. So you can get a positive either by multiplying 2 positives together or by multiplying 2 negatives together. So which of those 6 combinations adds to a negative 12 is, of course, negative 4 and negative 8. And again, you can check it if you want. But we're going to move towards being able to check in our head and being able really to just know for a fact that we got it right. Factors of 24. Now I notice here it's 1 positive, 1 negative. There's a lot of factors of 24. Again, this is a little overkill writing them all out twice. But if you're having trouble, and then it starts, of course, with x and x, but if you're having trouble, this is really a good way because you can make these all negative or you can make those all negative. And it says, okay, which of those combos is going to add to positive 10? It's negative 2 and positive 12. X minus 2, x plus 12. And I'm not going to check that one, I know it's right. Same combos again, x and x, now it's got to multiply to a positive 24 and a positive 10. So this is going to be both positive plus 4 plus 6. X squared plus 6x plus 4x plus 24. X squared plus 10x plus 24. So you've done this before, but we know that this is tricky and it's so important. So we review, again, factoring trinomials.